Well, Bakkt has kicked its launch date down the road again. Joining us on the line to discuss is Alexander Geralis, Chief Product Officer at cXchange. Alexander, thank you so much for joining us on the line today.
Thank you, Jessica, for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Always a pleasure here too. Now let's look at Bakkt for a second. How much damage is this set to do to their brand, this postponement of the launch date?
Right. While the original suggested date was, I believe, January 24th, and now they haven't really given a new date. I guess they're waiting from the CFTC to give them, real clarity. But personally, I don't think it's going to harm their brand so much because they also just announced the 182 million new funding, and some of the names there are very substantial. So, for now, it's just a bump in the road.
And you're absolutely right there when you make reference to the funding that they have raised, because I think people would consider this right now as a bear market, and what they have reached is phenomenal. And it does show there's still interest in the space, which is fantastic. If we look back to 2017, there was the CME launch of Bitcoin futures market. Now that was seen as a major drive in the 2017 price increase. Are we set to see the same when Bitcoin futures by Bakkt does actually launch?
Yeah, over 2017, a lot of people were expecting the CME Futures to take Bitcoin, quote unquote, to the moon. And it did a lot all the way to the launch of the futures. But the actual date the futures launched was also, coincidentally, the peak of Bitcoin USD. Mm-hmm. So I don't like to think about it, so much as bullish or bearish in market. But it's definitely good for sentiment. People like that. Retail traders, they like to see, more institutional money come in. Because it's kind of accepting Bitcoin as a legit asset class that funds can now trade with other people's money.
And if we look at actually what we are waiting to see from Bakkt and the takeoff, what do we have to see from Bakkt in order to make sure that they are compliant? It does seem that regulation really is standing in the way here.
The CFTC hasn't really commented clearly on why. They haven't given the green light, but I imagine they're still reviewing it, and they're a little bit curious about how the price is going to be derived, and if they can agree that this is not easily manipulated. And, you have to remember you're talking about a government agency, and they're always a little bit slower than the private parts of the market. So it's natural to have delays and a setback and another setback. But the bigger picture is that they have the money, they have the contract specifications, the CFTC has those specs, and so far it seems like everything's okay with those. And furthermore, they have a clearinghouse and they have the exchange, the ICE on board. So it's really just about getting the final green light from the CFTC.
And if we look at the first postponement from Bakkt that we did see, that was because of as Bakkt said, a real surge in interest, and it was a higher interest than they were expecting. So we are expecting to see a lot of interest in this. Is that what you're expecting from this?
I think the people that will trade the Bakkt product already know who they are, very much like the CME Futures. It's typically institutional money. It's not really private traders unless they're very large, because the contract size is substantial. And what they will like with the Bakkt product is, as we said last time we were speaking, is that it's a physically deliverable contract. So you will actually get, at the end of the contract day, you will get settled in Bitcoin, which is a big difference from the CME Futures. And the CME Futures are also monthly. So there is interest, and that interest is people that want to trade proprietary funds or other people's money, because they cannot do that on an exchange. You're not currently allowed to take your client's money and go trade on Coinbase, for example.
Sure, and we have seen, this is the second time that we have seen Bakkt push the date back. Is there a risk that actually, because we are waiting on regulators now, that actually this doesn't take off?
I highly doubt it, because the people that have invested in Bakkt and the people that they've hired are from this part of the market. They hired people that are from banks. Their CEO Kelly herself was working as chief of communications and marketing at the ICE exchange. So they know the game very well. They know the people, and they've done the research. And then furthermore, the companies that have invested money into Bakkt, Microsoft venture arm or Boston Consulting, they know a lot more than we know. It's just a matter of getting over this bump, and it's been delayed. But it will definitely launch. I see the possibility of it not launching very small. And where this all started, actually, if you go back to 2015, is when the CFTC classified Bitcoin as a commodity. So they have to be the body that will give the green light. Maybe, if they make something with tokens or Ethereum, it might be the SEC. And the SEC works a little bit quicker, and also I believe they're more aggressive than the CFTC. So we just got to wait it out.
And you said wait it out there. Now, you also said earlier on in the interview that actually you don't agree with categorizing as bull and bear markets as per se. A lot of investors and a lot of people that do follow the markets were expecting that Bakkt launching Bitcoin futures would actually break out of this bear market that we have seen. If we do look forward, does this have negative impact on the market? Would you expect this to have some kind of impact, just this postponement?
Yeah, it's, as I said a little bit earlier, like, people like reading the sentiment. And I think retail traders in general, they like to, especially in crypto, when there's good news and the price surges, or there's good news, they expect the price to surge. And then when there's bad news, they'll kind of ignore it. And then if the price drops, they'll say, okay, well, the price dropped because so and so. When in reality, all the market does is it lets people trade the product, and that product find its equilibrium in price, moving up, moving down, and that's clearly based on supply and demand. So I'm always very careful about looking at a news catalyst and saying like thing that will take Bitcoin to whatever price. But that being said, recently we have had a really nice surge in a lot of the big caps, like Ethereum started, and now Litecoin's very strong. Neo looks like it's going to do well, and it's been over a longer time horizon. So a market, the bigger the market, the more it's like a ship. Like, it takes time to turn around, and this might have been the corner that a lot of traders were waiting for it to turn.
And that's really interesting that you've said that, because Bakkt CEO has said that trust is crucial in this kind of environment. And it does seem from the funding that Bakkt has raised that despite this pushback, there is still a lot of trust in this space and in the Bitcoin futures by Bakkt particularly. Would you still say there's trust in this particular area?
I think when Kelly Loeffler, the CEO of Bakkt, said this, she means that a trust from both sides. So first of all, trust from the CFTC, that they are serious, they are legit, they will do what they promise to do, and that they belong in this market. They can bring this product to the ICE, and it will be an attractive market, because at the end of the day, the ICE wants products that are trading. They don't want, because it costs a lot of money to have it there, to have it online. And she also means trust from the people that are waiting for the product to come out. So it's kind of like she's saying, look, guys, it's a little bump in the road. We'll get over it. And then again, she was, chief of communications and marketing at the IC, so she's very good at this.
Mm-hmm. And if we look at some of the partnerships that Bakkt has, they've got collaborations with Microsoft and Starbucks. They've also got partners such as Boston Consulting Group. Are we expecting, actually, as this postponement does kind of unravel, another set of partnerships and interesting alliances from Bakkt?
I don't know if they will need to do another funding, but fundings are not always about money, right? It's also about having the right people on board. So Pantera Capital, that was kind of one that we could have guessed. And then, of course, they have ICE, they have the clearinghouse, which we knew before. But from the latest funding round, what I really found interesting was the Microsoft venture firm arm that you mentioned, and then Boston Consulting. So Boston Consulting they're one of the giants, in their realm, and they're global. And I think the first time they commented on Bitcoin was in 2015. They had a paper on payments, and then December 2016 they launched a whole paper just about Bitcoin. So this reminds you that people, they haven't been ignoring Bitcoin. They've been watching crypto for a while.
And Alexander, you do work for cXchange, so you probably are best to ask this. Is actually what do you think that the CFTC and regulators are looking for here from Bakkt? What do you think they're waiting to see?
I believe they're probably spending more time reviewing the how they derive the price, because originally they did comment that that is what they're worried about. They're worried about how the price is derived, and then at the same time, you might have some people in the SEC that they're fine, they've given the green light, but there's a few people high enough, senior enough, that say, you know what, we're not happy, we want more clarity on this, because it will get approved. The chances of it not getting approved are very small, but it might get pushed back. So what we can see now is the CFTC can come out and they can say, okay, this, and this is good. We were not clear on this. And then Bakkt will, of course, revise, or they'll come back with their answer. And yeah, sooner or later, it's going to launch.
And is this something that comes particularly from Bakkt, or also Bitcoin price volatility must have a role to play in this, which a lot of people don't have the answers to?
It's volatile because of the market participants and also the size of the market. As the market grows, we'll probably see it becoming less volatile because it becomes more difficult to push around the price. So Bakkt is clear on how they're getting the price, but it might be the case that the CFTC is not happy with their explanation of how they're getting the price. Because it has to be, the way liquidity works in crypto is that they look at a few markets, and those markets derive the price. And you can choose, I want to look at the top 3 exchanges, or I want to look at the CME Futures, and I'll weight 20% of my price based on that. There's many different ways. There's not a right and a wrong, but it has to be absolutely clear to the CFTC how it is happening.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your insights today, Alexander. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you very much for your time today.
Likewise. Have a good day ahead.
Thank you. That's all for myself and Alexander. Let us know how you found this interview and what you believe to be the future of Bakkt is.
This is BloxLive TV.